Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today we've got Peter Quill, or as you may know him, Star-Lord. You know, Star-Lord, man. Legendary outlaw? Guys? Alright, here's the baseline. And here's all the paints I'm going to use to get to where I want to go. If any of you have ever looked at stuff laying around your house and thought you could make it look quite a bit better just by giving it a little love, then you probably know where I got the idea for this one. So, I grabbed this guy, brought him downstairs, got a little bit of soap and water, and made sure there wasn't any residue on there that was going to mess up my future paint job. There's really nothing worse than getting halfway through a paint job, and then having your paint start lifting off the model because it wasn't adhered correctly. So what you've been seeing here is a Zenithal Prime using Stynylrez Primer. This is again to help with the adhesion, and to give me a solid base to work off. At this point, I'm really feeling like I'm in my wheelhouse. I got my bold Pyro Red out, one of my favorite colors, and I'm just going to town blasting this model. I'm simply choosing red as my starting point because it's the largest, flattest surfaces on here. After that first coat went down, I came back in with a second coat of bold Pyro Red to help brighten up some of the areas where the light would hit. After that, I got out the orange and start putting in the extreme highlights. For the leather on this model, I'm going to be using dark umber, light umber, and ivory. I'm going to be using pretty much the same workup for the boots, the straps, the backpack, and his hair. If you're interested in trying this stuff yourself, you don't have to know a lot of things. I'm going to use pretty much the same wet blending technique on all these surfaces. My workup for this leather is to start with dark umber, get that on thick and wet, and then I'm going to run a strip of ivory right in the center wherever I think the light would hit. For instance, on his right boot, it's going to be a vertical line running right down the front. Then I'm just going to work those colors back and forth, blending them together until I get a gradient and a nice smooth transition. This bag is really the best place to show off that process. Flat open surfaces like this one really take the wet blend well. For his skin tone, I'm just going to start laying down this tan flesh, and then I'll come back in and work it up later. Thanks to the wonders of technology, I've got a little picture-in-picture down in the bottom right. This is how I mixed up the color that I used for the jeans. I didn't have a paint that was the exact right look I was going for, so I figured I'd just start mixing it together. And here on the jeans, I'm just going to lay down a little bit lighter color on top, and then feather that in, blend it back into the shadows. I wanted to stay true to the model colors that the Infinity model had, so I decided to use blue on the shirt as well. I decided to make sure that I got a light enough shade of blue that it differentiated itself from the pants. The last thing I wanted to do was have somebody look at this thing and think this guy's wearing a onesie. For this step, I made a glaze out of my orange paint. All I did was take that orange, mix it about 2:1 water to paint. Once I had it thin and transparent enough, I started pushing the highlights that I had laid in with the airbrush. And then while I had the orange out, I decided to go in and put in my initial edge highlights. After that, it was time to move to the metallics. All the metal on this model is done with silver, and then later on I came back in and added a drop of black ink to the silver to create my shadows. And after you got those two, it's just a matter of blending them together until you get that nice smooth transition you're looking for. So at this point, Star Prince, or Star Lord, is really starting to come together. This has been a real fun project to do in between Space Marines. I've got the Indominus box just sitting on my shelf, but sometimes it's good to break things up. These Disney Infinity figs are actually really nice sculpts. Underneath that really boring paint job that's on there, there's some nice detail and some good character. This just seemed like too good a thing to pass up. I love to paint, and I got some nice models at hand. Figured I may as well use them and see what I could do with these. Time to do some work on the lenses. I'm going to be using my Bold Pyro Red, Orange, and White. I'm going to have the light coming from the upper right, and then reflecting down through the lens and exiting the bottom left. This is the part of the process I really enjoy. It's where I get to start putting in the details that really make these figures pop and come to life. For the cross hatching, I just went back to my original blue color that I used for the pants, lightened it up, and thinned it out a little bit. Doing that left me with something that would be noticeable, but wouldn't take over the model. The hatching on the shirt's going a little more extreme. It's the upper torso, and it's close enough to the face that if I can catch the eye with that hatching, your eye will naturally follow that up. Spend some time at the lenses, and really just look at the face, which is where I want most of the attention to be anyway. Now I'm grabbing some pure white and coming in and reinforcing my edge highlights. Moving back up to the head, which is where I'm trying to get the attention. I'm going to work on this hair a little bit. It's not so much as creating strands of hair as the impression of strands of hair. I'm sure if you wanted to, you could sit here with a little size 00 brush and make every little strand. But given that this is a comic style model, it's much more appropriate just to make the implication of hair strands. I may as well slap it on the boots too. We're staying in the wash game, but we're switching over to Nuln Oil. This is going to go over all my metallics and the ivory faceplate. Since this is such a large scale model, I've already got a lot of the color value built in, but this just goes into the recesses and really defines those cracks and crevices. As I was looking at it, I decided this lower portion of the cloak was just a little bit too bland, so I figured I'd come in here and punch that up just a little bit. To add some texture to the backpack, I'm doing a real heavy crosshatch. I'm keeping this focused mostly on the edge, somewhere you'd see a little bit more of the wearing and the fraying. Now I'm going to grab my Agrax Earthshade and I'm just going to kind of wash it over top of this. It's going to soften up those lines quite a bit and help them fade back in. Moving on to the base, this is another thing I couldn't quite figure out on the original model. This is pretty obviously something tech-centric, but when it came with the original model, they had this weird tan yellow color on there. I decided to ditch that color and just go with the generic ship interior gray. And that base is getting a standard 2-color edge highlight workup, a little bit of recess shading with some Nuln Oil. I'm going to keep it pretty simple, not waste a lot of time on it. After that's done, it's time to come back up to the model and take a look around. Before I wrap things up, I like to see if there's things that I think I can improve. And a couple of those things here. We're working on the skin tones, bringing a nice bright tanned flesh base color back, and putting a little bit of black lining into the armor on the arm. And with that, I think he's ready to go guard Galaxy, or at least look better on a shelf in between game sessions. Looking at these side-by-side comparisons with the original model, I'm really happy with how this thing turned out. I feel like I was able to push it a little more into the comic book look, and honestly just about anything you do is going to be better than those flat lifeless colors. I got a couple more Infinity figures from the Marvel Universe and a couple from the Star Wars sitting around. I got a Boba Fett here I've got my eye on. I'm pretty sure he'll be in the future at some point. I hope you guys have enjoyed watching this guy get a brand new coat of paint. If you got any questions or comments, go ahead and put them down below. Go ahead and check out some of my other videos, and I'll see you in the next one.